Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? And welcome. Today I'm chatting to long-term Spain resident Mark, who lives down in the province of Malaga in the south of Spain. He's owned a business for many years here in Spain, and he's going to talk about some of the ups and downs of owning a business in this country. So let's go to the interview. So tell us something about yourself, Mark. Tell us where you're from, what you do, why you came to Spain.
Well, originally I'm from Oxford in England. Obviously, I've lived here now for 22 years. Before moving to Spain, I spent almost 10 years in London, where I worked within the catering industry, usually in pubs, bars, and restaurants. I decided to come to Spain in 2002, just around about the time the euro came in. And just for a change, really. London was burning me out, and I decided I needed a new challenge. I didn't come here to escape anything. I just came here for a challenge, basically.
Did you have any friendships here, or did you have an interest in Spain before you came? Did you speak the language?
No, I mean, my wife, actually, not my current wife. My wife is Chilean, so we were together in London. So I had the usual tricks, a few Spanish words here and there, but nothing fluent. Before, when I made the decision to move here, I did study and got round a few tricks. As I'm sure you know, the tener trick and things like that. Some tengo hambre, tengo sed. Yeah. But when I came here, I had quite a shock because my parents had a place up the coast from where I settled, and I came and did a couple of kind of fact-finding trips, and it was quite cheap. But when I arrived in April of 2002, everything had gone up about 25-30% because the peseta had disappeared and the euro had come in.
Well, that's right. That was that euro inflation that hit. So your parents have a house here, or had a house here. I don't know whether they still do.
No, they still don't.
Okay. And so you had experience with Spain. You knew what the area was like. You'd been here on holidays.
Luckily, I grew up in a quite privileged household, and we would holiday abroad quite a lot as when I was a youngster. But we never really came to Spain. We always went to Portugal, the south of France, the States. And years later, I asked my father why, and he was basically quite derogatory of the south of Spain at the time.
Didn't like it.
No, I mean I've been to Madrid a couple of times to see games of football and things like that, but never really here as a tourist until they had a place here.
Oh, okay, cool. And did your wife influence the decision to come to Spain? Did she want to be in a Spanish-speaking country?
No, she loves the UK. She's quite Anglophile. So, I say the UK, we were in London together, and London could be its own country, really. Yeah. It's very, very different. But, she would be quite happy to move back, I think.
Oh, well, that's I suppose that's something which is, I'd say that's positive, because you've got that flexibility, right? If you need to move, you can go back or stay here or whatever. Now, so you come here, you land on the ground, no job planned, I'm presuming here?
No, I had my dream was always to own my own bar in London. And I was on the verge of coming over to try and find something 2 years previously, and the people I worked for basically offered me a stake in the business they were buying. So it wasn't much, but I for the first time I could call myself a kind of bar owner, even though it was only a small percentage. But eventually they needed to do some kind of housekeeping, and I offered for them to buy me out. So I did very well with my investment, and with that money, I wasn't able to buy anything for myself in London because I didn't have enough. But I would be able to do in Spain, or so I thought with the peseta. That reality was very different when I arrived here to find out the euro had come in. But I got here with a pile of money, a dream, and I knew I touched base with an estate agent here who showed me around, and he put us up in an apartment, and off we went, searching for places.
Good. And that led to employment prospects, or did you always have the idea to start something? Or
I always wanted to buy something. I mean, it's lovely to. I think if you're in the bar business, you've always dreamed of owning your own place or your own restaurant or own bar, and to have my own bar completely and be me was a big thing. I mean, I took my manager with me from London and offered him like 5%, which he used to always joke would be the ladies' toilets. Yeah, and we bought something, so it was nice to actually say this is mine. I didn't come here to work because I could make very good money in London. Obviously.
Okay. So you bought an established bar already?
No, that it was a strange one. The bar we bought, which is in Fuengirola at Costa del Sol, is slightly out of town, but it had been empty for 6 months. And when I came over previously to do a bit of searching and fact finding, the estate agent had pulled up outside and said, "This is the place for you. It's a shame you're not here now. This is the place." It was on the first floor overlooking the whole of the town. Beautiful views. And unfortunately, I wasn't there to buy at the time. But when we came back on the beginning of the third day, I said to him, I was so demoralized, on the verge of just jumping back on the plane again. I said, "What about that place you said in Fuengirola?" So he went there, he made a phone call, and it had been empty for 6 months. They'd gone under. And surprisingly, it was still on the market. So
it was a bar before.
It was a bar, but the poor people who owned it, it was a gay couple who tried to do the concept of a gay sports bar, which didn't really work. Not the most greatest business idea in the world. And they'd struggled and ended up living within the premises. When we turned up, there was like a sofa bed in there, and you could tell that they've installed a shower in the storeroom, and they'd obviously been living in it. But they didn't have any. They didn't have any bar experience, and they converted what was obviously a lovely flat into a bar, and been ripped off by various builders and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So it was in like a residential block. This place.
No, it's an old villa, which a huge house. It must have been back in the day. I believe an artist must have lived there, or did live there. And there's 4 units downstairs, which are quite small, and the big unit upstairs, which is mine. But
okay.
I mean, it's always been bars and restaurants. I mean, but I told you, I was there for 22 years in there, to give you an idea how quickly those places changed. The places below me, I saw 65 different owners in my time.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's something we need to touch on as well. So you've got that experience in London owning a bar. You come here to Spain. You've got some money to invest. You get this opportunity. You open a bar. I'm going to say I don't know. I've never been to the bar, Mark, as you know. I'm going to say, was it an English themed bar, or you were trying to attract the locals, or you wanted a mix? What was the idea with the bar?
Well, I don't discriminate against anybody. So as long as they behave themselves, I don't mind the
I asked that question because obviously you know that there are other bars that only cater to tourists, right?
Yeah. Well, we're right next to an all-inclusive hotel.
Oh, okay.
Which at the time I think was the cheapest package holiday for a Brit or an Irishman or Irish person. So we didn't have the greatest selection of tourism, put it that way. So when you talk about the change of the kind of tourism model here, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it was quite a culture shock coming from cool Soho, London, to the Costa del Sol and dealing with a package holiday makers. That's not me to being discriminative. That's just it was a different
clientele.
Yeah, you get people walking in and demanding a John Smith's, or asking when the rugby league was on, and you're like, what? So I realized pretty quickly that wasn't the model.
Did you have any British beers on tap?
No. We went. As you'll be happy to know, we originally started with the Cruise Camper.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, my favourite.
Your favourite, yeah. But no, you kept cans of John Smith's and things like that because it was in demand. But I couldn't understand why anybody would come to the Costa del Sol and drink a can of John Smith's.
Okay. So the idea wasn't like one of these places you might see in Benidorm or the south of Tenerife or somewhere where you're only going for your sports bar with your Premier League games, your rugby games.
Well, no,
John Smith's on tap.
We opened up, and literally as the World Cup of 2002 in Japan and South Korea started. So we had to obviously make money straight off the door to start paying bills and things. So we went straight for the crowd in the hotel. But I realized pretty quickly that was not the way to go. I mean, I remember I think it was the second week, there was a guy would come in every night. I think he was from Manchester. He owned a record shop and he was a big boxing fan. And he came and watched the big fight at the weekend with me at 4:00 in the morning. And me and him would have been friends for life. And then suddenly on the Sunday, he comes in and shakes my hand and says, "Well, good luck with everything. I hope it all goes well." And then he was gone. So this was before the days of Facebook and things like that. So we lost contact. And I thought, if that's London, he's my customer forever. Yeah. That was quite hard to get your head around that. The transient
Yeah, I
turnover
think.
of people.
Yeah, I
You
think
want
that's.
locals. You want locals.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big issues that a lot of foreigners living here, not to use the word expat, Mart, as you know,
I hate that
but
word.
it's the changing all the time. It's difficult to get people that are here for a long time to to forge those long-term not restaurants, those long-term friendships. That's it.
We had on the very first night we opened up. It was the local bar owners came in, and so we invited them in for a drink to our neighbours. And at midnight, suddenly about 40 or 50 Brummies turned up from Birmingham, and they were on a pub holiday, right? And it was like mad. I thought, it's going to be like this. I'll already get my calculator out, calculate how much money I'm going to make over the next year. And it was brilliant. But then the day after, I came in, and one of the bars downstairs had a big A board out saying, "We welcome the so and so pub from Birmingham." I was like, really? God. I thought, and then you realise what you're up against. It's and people. I think the changeover day for that hotel was a Tuesday and a Sunday, and if you get those people on a Tuesday night or a Sunday night, you're guaranteed to keep them most of the week, but you don't always happen. So it's.
One of the things I'm interested in hearing is that, so you mentioned that you a lot of local clientele coming in, the Malagueños, and you also had some tourists coming in as well, some foreign residents. Is there a big difference in the way people consume, or they have similar drinking habits, or what's the difference?
There's that urban myth that the Spanish don't drink, which you hear a lot, and I imagine you hear that where you are, but they do. I mean, they can. I would never go drinking with the Spanish on gin and tonics or whiskey and cokes, because they can put them away, and they're all triple measures. They're not small measures. I mean, I made a decision quite quickly that I didn't want to be here, and I tried to sell. So I managed to collect a deposit, which the sale fell through. And with that deposit, I managed to say, right, I'm not selling my soul anymore. I'm going to play my music, do my thing, and I'm not going to, cater for the tourist anymore. And by luck, Spanish started coming in. The locals started coming in. So you speak to them and say, what music do you like? What do you like? And you try and eventually the bar got built up through that. But they drink, the Spanish. I mean, you get the British binge drinkers, or the Irish binge drinkers because they're on holiday.
Yeah.
But the Spanish do drink. I mean, I think that's one of the most biggest misconceptions there is.
Yeah, I think it's a different type of drinking.
More slowly,
it's a longer thing, and they mix it with food and meals and things, and they sort of kick on after that. My theory is that you don't see the drunken violence as much here as you might see in the UK or Australia or other places, because they're getting that drunk later at night when no one's around. So there are still things getting smashed and.
But you hit the nail on the head there completely, because we were only allowed to open to 2:00 in the morning. So I do last orders around about 1:30, have everybody out the door by 2. So then we'd move on to the city centre, where they continue to drink until 6:00. And the centre of town on a Saturday and Friday night, probably not as bad as, say, the UK, Australia, but there were still fights and there were still problems.
Yeah. I noticed it here, but things bus stops get smashed, and things get left around because they like to drink outside. They like to get a drink, go outside, and the cups and glasses get left behind and things like that. So just going back to one thing you said there, you were ready to sell up and move on early in the game. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, about literally 3 months in, I thought I can't do this. This is not my. I built my business on locals and things like that, and I can't be doing with the tourist trade. We were literally going to go to, me and my wife were going to head to Chile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which would have been interesting. So she went back because of her visa issues. We weren't married at the time, so she had to go back anyhow. So I joined her for that Christmas. We had the deposit in place for them to take over when we were away, and then I had to fly back in January because the sale had fallen through. I mean, I got a very nice deposit, which allowed me then, I said, to change my business model. Yeah, I thought I was going to go for it. If I fail, I fail.
So that was the secret: changing that business model, getting a different type of clientele. That gave you the longevity, let's say, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that took time to establish the local clientele. But when you say local clientele, you're talking foreign clientele as well who live here.
Yeah.
The immigrants or expats, as they like to call themselves. But it's interesting. I've come across a few people I was speaking Spanish to for years, then suddenly found out they're English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, second generation English because their parents have been brought up here.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't discriminate against anybody. Locals is where your bread and butter is, and your tourism on top is your bonus.
Yeah. Well, that's actually quite common now that you do get that second generation that have grown up here, gone to school here, been educated here, but they've still got that English connection, of course, through their parents that came out looking for a better life in the sun, what have you. Another thing you mentioned there, the place downstairs. You said 68 times.
No, 65. I mean, they're all
65. Okay.
I mean, when we came over, I got quite friendly with the agent, who I'm still friends with to this day. He's no longer here, and he was saying, these are starter bars, these small little shacks, really, little holes in the wall. And he goes, "You'll go mad. You don't take one of those. You're going to go mad. You know what you're doing. You've got experience." So they've changed hands, 65 times.
Wow.
I mean, one of them's I've only changed 3 times, but the other one's multiple times.
Okay.
And it's always the same thing. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they're following a template that doesn't work. Yeah. And they don't. And so
what is that? What is that template? Just what?
Well, it's it's obviously people who shouldn't have businesses in the first place because they haven't got businesses in their own country, which ironically was the reason I came here. But they get all. I mean, to sum it up, the guy who does my pest control is an English guy who's lived here 35 years. Yeah. And he used to come and do my pest control every 6 and 12 months. And he would come in and I go, "Hello, Nige, what you've been doing today?" "Mark, you won't believe it. There's an English bar opened up. They're going to do all the sports, English breakfast, toasted sandwiches." Yeah. He says his missus is really good cook. He's a bit of a people's person. I go, "How long do you give them?" He goes, 3 months.
Yeah.
And it was that everybody doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's the dream people have because, I mean, the weather's the big attraction for people, right? You're living in a gloomier part of the world, maybe in your north of England or whatever, and you come down to the Costa del Sol, and it's called the Costa del Sol for a reason, right?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, ironically, the weather plays havoc with the business. I mean, for us, in the end, depending completely on the locals, we would do worse in July and August than the rest of the year. I want March and April all year round, Easter, because you're competing against the beach.
The chiringuitos.
Well, the chiringuitos, people on the beach, people are going to Mercadona buying their cheap beer and their cheap food and taking it to the beach. Yeah. And another thing you notice, the type of tourism in July and August, they've paid a lot of money for a hotel or an apartment. Yeah. And they haven't got much money to spend. Yeah, so that's both the Spanish from inland Spain and the local and the tourists from abroad.
Yeah, so they've taken, as you said, that all-inclusive or half-inclusive hotel and having lunch and breakfast there, and maybe not spending much money outside, which is not what you as a business owner want, right?
No, they come out maybe once a night and have a drink and sit there for an hour and go back, and that's the cliche thing to say here. Oh, a Spaniard will sit there for an hour with a beer, but. Trust me, there's plenty of Brits who do that as well.
It's interesting on I think it was on the news or television show last week I was watching, they were talking to different bar owners here because bars are part of Spanish tradition, right? Every city has an abundance of bars. People love going to bars. Too many, that's right. And a lot of the bars are owner-operators. They work there themselves. They're working really long hours. They're talking about starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, finishing at sometimes 12 later at night. So we're looking at a long day. And one of the biggest complaints was a lot of people said, and which is something that you mentioned, is that people don't understand what the business is before they get into it, right?
No, definitely. They don't even know how to change a barrel. So.
That's right. And a lot of these places were only, as I said, they didn't have any staff, or maybe just one person working for them. And I think staff, we'll touch on this now. What's it like here with all of the complex labour rules and regulations and the attitude that people have towards work? Was it difficult to find good staff?
Not really. I would say as soon as I became more Spanish orientated, it was quite easy to find staff. And you tend to look after them. And it wasn't difficult because the working conditions in my sector are particularly bad. So you just guarantee people 2 days off. You make sure they're paid on time, make sure they have paid holidays. Yeah. The simple things. But the longer I was here, the more the labour laws were adjusted and got tighter and tighter. Yeah. And it gets more difficult. But there's two trains of thought here. You've got a huge illegal black economy here and a legal side, And if you're a legal business here, especially a small business, you struggle. Yeah. You struggle. I mean, you have to give with the labour laws, I think, really changed probably pre-COVID, probably 2019, it started getting harder and harder.
Well, it's when the government changed as well. Right?
Yeah, but obviously it was Podemos originally with PSOE, and now it's Sumar. But I understand that everything towards workers' rights and things like that. But it's so hard when someone is off sick, or someone's off sick for a long period of time, or even someone wants a holiday. You've got to cover it yourself because you're paying so much. I mean, I'll give you an example. We were paying one guy 1,600 euros net, right, a month, which is good. He was running the bar. But he was costing me 62% on top of that, 60%. I think it was costing me just under 2,600 as a business owner. So if he takes a week's holiday, what am I going to do? Pay someone else to do that? You can't afford that. You're making no money.
No, well, that's the issue, right? Because, you don't really have that flexibility, I think, and that's also one of the biggest complaints that people have. And it's actually sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I would say I never worked I worked far harder here, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, than I ever did in London. And when I was generally a manager or a part owner in London, I very rarely had to work behind the bar because I was there using my savvy and my abilities rather than physically working. Here, you tend to work a lot physically.
Yeah, but here you're doing more graft.
God, tell me about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was the longest staff member that you had? How long did they stay before they moved on?
Well,
or you moved them on?
Well, God, no. Well, I wish I could move them on because that's another debate altogether. Let's not get into the labour laws for people. But I had one guy who worked for me almost for 12 years and one guy for 10 years.
Okay.
But during COVID and the quarantine, they decided they needed a change of career. Yeah. Because they were getting into their late 30s, and they both quit. So that was a bit of a relief. Yeah. Because I don't know if you said, I've just sold my business and I've just ended up paying off all my staff.
So let's just say that if that person, let's say you fired them, that person that's been there for 12 years, how much would you have to pay?
Well, because he'd been there 12 years before the labour laws changed, I would have paid him 45 days for every year he worked.
Okay. There's a maximum though, isn't there?
I think I remember the
3 years or something, is it not?
No, it's amount. I think I may be wrong in this. I think it was 25,000 you can get, but that doesn't apply to people who were contracted before the law changed. I know people who've got finiquitos or payouts, severance pay for over 30,000.
Yeah. So that's something that you need to take into consideration as well, the labour laws, and you have to really understand them before you open a business.
The labour laws are so complex, and there's so many different unions and things like that you have to follow. It's almost impossible to stay on top of it.
Yeah, I understand.
Even the labour lawyers can't stay on top of it, and there's so many grey areas. And people abuse it, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, that's probably what leads to the black market and the size that it is, right? Because people just try to avoid all of the red tape and all of the changes in laws and just try to do things on the sly sometimes, I imagine.
I interviewed one guy once, and he'd been working in one of these chiringuitos, beach bars. And I said to him, so how many days do you work a week? And he goes, 8. Give me 8 days a week. So I work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. July and August. And I said, sorry? Oh, how you doing? He goes, no, I get paid really well. They pay me 2,100 a month. And I say, like, 2,100, only 2,100 a month? You were doing double work. You're doing double contract, yeah. But because he had paid a large chunk in cash, to him thought he was making money.
Again, that's they see the effects of that later down the line when the pension doesn't come through and things like that, because it's all associated, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
So
you do have a. I would say this for once, I'm thinking for the first time in my life, I'm actually feeling like a different generation, because the modern generation here, they tend to they've got these new contracts which are 8 months on, 4 months off, or 9 and 3 off. Yeah. And they all want those contracts because they're guaranteed their job. They're getting 3 months unemployment, which is very generous here. Yeah. And then they're guaranteed their job back. And that's like the template now for work.
Well, they've come up with a new system, as you know, which is called the fijo discontinuo.
That's the one, yeah.
Which means that, as you said, you work for 8 months, but the employer has to guarantee that you get taken on when the work picks up again. So, yeah, basically, I'm not sure of the exact reason for this, but I think it manipulates the unemployment figures and things like that probably
But also,
as well.
the sad thing about that, and I was talking to my accountant about this, it's if you break down their pay slip and what they contribute towards their unemployment
Yeah.
and what I contributed towards their unemployment, it doesn't even cover the first payment of their unemployment benefits.
No,
So,
no,
there's a huge hole in the economy
yeah.
somewhere.
I mean, we could go on about the Spanish labor market all day, but at the end of the day, I mean, I've spoken about this in numerous videos. If you don't want to, if you can avoid working here, do it. If you have to work here, try to find a good job, which is not going to be easy. And if you want to open a business like yourself,
Prepare yourself for hardship. Yeah,
be prepared for the for everything that it has that's going to come your way.
I should have given you my short answer because most people say, "What do you think of the labor laws in Spain?" I said, "What they need to do is load them up, delete them, and start again." And that's what they need to do.
But again, that'll never happen. I mean, everybody's written about the labor laws here. You know, the two-tier system: people on really good jobs, people on really bad jobs, and the sort of grey areas in the middle. It's complex. So you sell up. What brought you to that decision? Just had enough, or was the time, or
it was so strange because I battled and I had periods when we had obviously the worldwide crisis in 2007, 2008, Lehman Brothers. That took the business down by about 25-30%. And then they decided to dig the road up in front of my bar for over a year, which no compensation. And I got through that. But then I battled back to the business was going flying. I think January and February of 2020 were our record months. I booked holidays to take my family to the States, go to the Basque Country afterwards, and then literally something happened in March, if I remember rightly, COVID. And then literally 8 months after the quarantine, I'm down to 3 figures in my bank account and struggling on the verge of going bankrupt. And luckily they made some adjustments to the payment system. And my only crime at that stage was that I was legal because I was basically paying the staff Social Security, which was crippling me without discounts at some point. And and after that, it just got harder and harder. So I found myself never taking any holiday, always working, constantly having to deal with a problem. I think something happened during that COVID period. People's mentality changed, and definitely more mistakes made, be it by suppliers. And everything like that. It just got tougher and tougher. And in the end, no matter what you do, no matter how good you are at your own job, you're always depending on other people.
Yeah, well, that's it. So first-hand experience running a business here in Spain, a bar. It's a popular choice by many. Single-word answer, Mark. Would you do it again?
No.
All right. Would you recommend it to somebody?
I'd have to sit down and talk to them. I think about that. It depends. You seem to get, the more successful you get, the more difficult it gets. And to be a micro business here or a business which isn't particularly small, particularly large, it costs a lot of money, and you struggle. I have a friend of mine I used to use for a mechanic, and he had a partner who was also self-employed, and they had one employee. One guy decided to retire, so it was one guy self-employed and one employee. And I said, "Why didn't you employ someone else?" He goes, "I don't employ someone else because all I'm going to do is make more money to pay his Social Security and his wage. I'm better off just having one and working less." Which isn't the mentality you should have, really.
No, well, again, it's the crippling social costs. I mean, I don't know what they're like in the UK. I don't know. I haven't, been in that situation. But are they? Can you compare it in any way, shape, or form? I
mean, obviously, you've got PAYE in the UK and things like that. It's not as crippling as it is here. But I mean, countries like France and Belgium, I believe, as a friend keeps reminding me, are far worse when it comes to labour laws and Social Security. But I don't think the black economies there are as big as they are here.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So it's
one thing you struggle with. One of the things I struggle with having a bar owner is you constantly battle. Your competition is either against the town hall because they're putting on events which are affecting your business, or businesses which are completely illegal and are undercutting you by about half in some cases.
Yeah. You mentioned
that. Sell a beer at a certain price. You have to do that to cover the Social Security and wages, and other people are doing it at half the price, and they're busy.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that when we had a chat beforehand that the local town fiestas or festival or fair not good for business.
No, I love the fact that they still have them here because it's traditional. It's amazing to see the horses, the dresses, and the how happy people are. But it's very very odd from looking at it if you take a step back, because they're celebrating the fact they have this town fair, but a lot of it is basically all in black, and you've got the mayor walking around shaking people's hands, and you're like, what's going on? And the whole town is empty apart from the areas around the fiesta or the feria. So, and you got these businesses which are completely empty, completely crippled by the feria, yet put up decorations to celebrate the fact that there's a feria. And you're like, you're celebrating the fact that you're making no money and your business is being destroyed. I mean, it to take off probably 50% of your turnover. Yeah.
So you dreaded that time of the year.
Well, you try and plan things like your holidays around that time. I always never understood how businesses here manage to shut for a month when they don't own the property themselves. It's so expensive to shut.
I've never worked that out either. No.
Well, you can work it out. You get it. It's quite straightforward if you think about it logically. What they're obviously not paying and what they should be paying.
Yeah. Well, again, that's it. That's the business model of some. All right, we'll start to wrap it up, Mark. It's been a pleasure. So, long-term. Well, I'm not going to say long-term plans. Short-term plans. You sticking around, or you're going to enjoy your pre-retirement down there, or what?
I would never. I think Spain is the most amazing place to live, as you know, but like everywhere, it has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
But years ago, the mother of my accountant said to me, "Spain's a wonderful place to live if you have money, or you have money from a different country, and you're not involved in the system here, because it is amazing." And I've kind of fallen in love again a little bit with Spain, because it is a lovely place to go walking in the morning. I'm very lucky here with the climate. The food here is amazing, as you well know, but it is very difficult for the locals here. I mean, there's a huge, this nomad visa thing you mentioned a lot on your channel. You can see how much that's affecting the local economy. You can see how much that is. I mean, it's amazing for a Norwegian to come here and earn 4,000 euros a year. I mean, a month, and he's like, wow! But he's earning 4 times what a local's earning.
Well, yeah, not only digital nomads, but also pensioners that come from countries like Finland or the north of Europe. They come down. They come down here with I've been told, obviously, bigger pensions than the average Spaniard's getting, right? So it automatically affects the local economy, the amount of money that people can put back in.
Well, I was quite shocked. We have a little bit further away from where I have my business. There was a holiday village there, and they employed a lot of Brits. I believe the Brits were employed for an Irish company, then shipped here.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that, yeah.
But they were earning like 20-30% more than the local Spanish who were working at the same hotel. All these Brits had 2 days off a week. The Spanish had 1 day off a week. The Brits' accommodation was being paid, right? The Spanish were obviously not having their accommodation paid. So they were in a kind of package of earning probably 50% more than the locals.
Yeah, and the locals get priced out. I suppose, I imagine that when you've lived in a place all your life, and you're involved in the day-to-day, your family lives here as well, and it's just the system that you've grown up in, you're really not asking yourself a lot of questions, right? It's not until you start to travel, see the way things work in other countries, that you realise that perhaps you're not getting the best deal.
I think ignorance is bliss. And people like to... I was always surprised how many locals would come in my bar and take a photograph of the view, the same view they've seen every day of their lives. It's almost like they're trying to convince themselves that they live in paradise, and there is a touch of paradise here, but you have to have money. Like everywhere, if you have money, you live a very comfortable life.
Well, that's the secret, isn't it? I mean, money's the fundamental thing. I mean, if you don't have it, you can be happy, but how long it will last, I don't know. All right, Mark, we'll wrap it up. So it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I reckon we've got time. I reckon we could do another one as well. We've got so much to talk about.
I think it'd be, I know several people you probably find, I think it'd be good for your channel to speak to several expat immigrants over here who
I was doing it before, but it sort of dropped off in recent times. I had another guy down there, Nick, who was living in the same area as you. Probably came into your bar a couple of times, don't know. But I did a few interviews back in the day. But definitely, we'll try and set something up. But
I mean, I know school teachers here who've worked in Barcelona. I've got people who own language schools, people who own Estanco cigarette shops.
Yeah,
there's various everyone's got an interesting story, but
Well,
the
that's
common
it.
theme is don't open your own business at the moment because it's so tough. Which I think is, once again, we like it's easy to point the finger at Pedro Sanchez and the local the government, but during COVID, the local government here in Andalusia was PP, which is the Conservatives, and the national was PSOE, and they both screwed me. So
I've come to the conclusion that it doesn't matter who's in government. The system is the system, and there's some tweaks here and there, but it doesn't matter what the colours are. It's all the same.
yeah, they always say PP soy, don't they? Here, did you watch the news yesterday with all the corruption stuff on it? It was just like, oh god.
Yeah, well, I
Paste again.
saw some. Yeah, but again, after the time that we've lived here, these things just repeat themselves over and over and over again.
It's literally just it's like watching a rerun.
It is. It doesn't matter who's in power; all the same things happen. But anyway, we'll have that conversation another time. Anyway, Mark, it's been a pleasure. I'll wrap it up. Good speaking to you.
You too, mate.
All the best.
You too, mate.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye.